All right, Commissioners Castone and Blair, your attendees have populated. We are recording and live streaming on YouTube. I turn it over to you all.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Bunn. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara Blair, co-chair of the Ward 7 ANC Redistricting Task Force. We want to welcome everyone, the public, the media. Welcome especially to my fellow task force members who've been toiling away over the last, at least the last 4 or 5 days, working on the report. But before we get into that, I just want to turn things over to my co-chair to kind of give us a synopsis or to give us an idea of what we're going to do here tonight and how we're going to proceed. Normally, we would have a nice printed agenda, but things have been moving so quickly. The agenda we had drafted has had to pretty much change on demand. And so we'll just be lining out how we're going to proceed. Commissioner Castone will take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Blair. Thank you very much. Good evening, Task Force member. Once again, right? We made it. We are at the point where we're going to land this plane, right? And so I want to give a huge shout out to everyone what we have done thus far. We've been working around the clock, tag team through the emails, back and forth, phone calls, you name it. We are here. So before we go into the official business, I think I wish a round of applause or something of that nature can take place, you know, just recognizing the effort that we all did, right? I mean, it's great. You know, I mean, that's very important to do that. I have a quote. A quote is from John C. Maxwell. He's the authoritative voice on leadership. And he stated that sometimes we underestimate the process and overestimate the event. We underestimate the process and overestimate the event. What he means by that is that saying that we forget that the event, getting to the final, to the finish line, right? Everyone celebrates that. But we fail to recognize the process to get there. That's why I want us to celebrate for a brief moment the process. We prove that we can collaborate despite our differences, right? And we can still work together for a common good. Tonight's agenda is simply this. We're not voting to say we want to throw this report out the window. We're voting to say that we want to advance this report to the next level. We're voting to say that this report represent our collective efforts. In its, how can I say, perfection or imperfection, yet it still represents our collective effort. And that's why we're voting tonight. Do I vote to advance or decline? And it's a simple vote, right? And so that's the formality right there. By virtue of us being present, we already acknowledge our collective efforts, right? But that's what it is right there. It's not a perfect report, but again, thank the perfect hearts that put their hands into doing this here. So with that being stated, I'm gonna turn it back to our co-chair, Blair. Thank you, co-chair Blair. You have been a wonderful time working with you and everyone else. And I'll say some of the things if I get a chance to say it again later on. But right now, let's take care of business. Take it away, co-chair.
Thank you. Yes, we definitely want to take care of business and get everyone back to their families and enjoying this pretty balmy evening. If I would like for Commissioner Leaney, if he could bring up the report. This is actually the first time we're going to be able to review the draft report before it goes final. So as we're looking at it, you may see typos, we'll catch those. What we want to focus on will be substantial amendments that we need to make. But understand that this document is a compilation or that was put together by about, I lost count, but probably about 7 or 8 people. So you may notice slight different writing styles. That is to be expected, but I don't think it will be anything that is glaring that will prevent the report from going forward. Understand also that we had a template for this report. So there are sections that had specific needs And so the writer for those sections knew what needed to go in there. So it's not just arbitrary information that someone decided, oh, I think that should go in that section. No, we had a template and we pretty much stuck to it. Keep that in mind. But this session right now, we're looking for the task force. If there is substantial amendments that might need to be considered, we will address that and decide as a group whether or not the report needs to be amended. So with that, we can take a look at our first section, which is the summary of recommendations. And working on that section, I believe, was Commissioner Wendell Felder. I think he worked on that section alone. He probably had someone else to look over it, but he's pretty much put that together. It's not very long. It's like maybe a page, 2 pages, and a couple of maps. Is Commissioner Felder on?
I don't believe he is on right now.
Okay. Well, the first section, summary of recommendations, is, as it says, it is a short synopsis of what the recommended map puts forward. And so he started off that section with some of the principles of redistricting as a jumping off point. So we're going to kind of take this slowly. The report is not extremely long, and I'm not sure how fast people can read, but we do want to give you a chance to kind of take in what is in the report. We're not going to just run through. So if you scroll up just a bit, we'll be able to see the bullet points. No, further down, the bullet points that are the abbreviated results of the recommended map. For those who may be on a phone, I will read those recommendations, but I'm not going to read the entire report. It says that based on the map that was selected by the task force, the following proposed changes to the ward map will include dissolving ANC 7D and forming a new joined Cross River ANC Commission, which will be known as ANC 7A. The second bullet point, it says that this map, the recommended map, makes the Deanwood neighborhood a whole community. It makes the Capitol Gateway neighborhood a whole community. It divides the new communities between ANC 7A and 7F. And it adds a new commissioner to the ANC 7E commission. And so that, what you see if you are viewing, you'll see a map, kind of a bird's eye view of what the alignment is for the SMDs, color coded. So every time you see a color change, that indicates a different ANC. On to the next section. Next section is pretty straightforward. There you'll find a list of names of the task force members as they first appeared when introduced by Councilmember Gray during our first meeting in January. Following that, we move into the task force process, which I worked on along with my co-chair. We were on the phone going back and forth, sending emails, exchanging information. And it starts off with just kind of an outline of our meetings, what took place, the listening sessions, which were primarily for listening to the public before we took a dive into roundtable sessions with the task force. And it briefly describes the process we used in reviewing the maps. We went through a couple of rounds of elimination to get to the map that we currently have contained in the report. And we ended up having more roundtables than what we initially thought. Our last one was on just Monday, the 28th. And we have arrived at that point, the name of the map was Ward 7 Stronger Together. I believe that map has an updated name. We'll get to that section in the rationale portion of the report. Substantive comments raised by the public. These were things that came to our attention through mostly emails that residents wrote. It's a long list. Won't go through every point, but that's one of the things they asked for in that particular section, is to include major substantive comments from the public.
Yeah, okay. Are you taking questions now, or are you waiting to the end? There's a task force member with a question.
Task force member, yes.
Richard.
Thank you, Chair Blair, and thank you all of the task force members who've been working on this report and writing it up. Some of the language in this section feels quite pointed. I'm wondering if maybe some of those are better placed in the minority response section, or if they are better paraphrased in ways that feel more suitable for this portion of the document. Thank you.
Well, the comments were taken from actual statements. Some words were omitted just to fit them in. And this is the section where it is requested that those type of comments appear.
Okay, thank you for that response. As a follow-up, there was a person who spoke at the last meeting who strongly supported Cross River ANCs for reasons of transportation. I didn't see that reflected here in this comment. If it's possible to add that comment, I believe that would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, this is not an entire list of all comments by far, not at all. So moving to the next section.
Co-chairs, you have two more.
Oh, two more hands.
Nathan Ruff and Keith Towery.
Just to kind of piggyback off of what Travis was saying, we did have Allison Horn that agreed that it was a good idea to cross the rivers. Just going into that comment, it did seem like it was some biased language used in the paperwork. And I think that we should revisit that maybe later on before the end of the night. I done already canceled my time, so I had plenty of time to go over it. But I think that we need to look at the language because it is pointing at other ethnicities. And also as well, like Travis said beforehand, we've had plenty of comments saying on what they agreed about crossing over to the river. So I don't think that we should have too much negative he say, she say in our report, because it looks like we're not working together and we're not on one page. That's all I needed to say.
Is there another hand?
Yes. Yes. I echo what Max and Ashley just said. I do think that it's a little leaning and it's a little deceptive. And I do hope that maybe we can spend some time now to talk about each of the comments that are here, and we can determine which comments should be there, or at least make it balanced so it doesn't just look as if the minority's opinion is prevailing over the whole. Thank you.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but the comments were taken from written comments. These are all of the written comments, and this is what people had to say. So going through probably 20 hours worth of meetings to pull out comments, if someone would like to work on that this evening, we can do that.
I just think though, Co-Chair Blair, I think that as you were able to retrieve these comments, I know that there was a lot of comments being said, and there's also a lot of comments that were in support of making a joint river ANC without having any additional comments behind it. I know that personally because we've had members from Deanwood community, Marshall Heights community, Capitol View community attend all of these meetings, and we've seen what they've said in the chat. So I just think that we could do a better job of making it a little bit more balanced, fair and balanced here in this particular section for the comments.
I'm not disagreeing. Again, I said these were the written comments. If someone wants to work on going through all of the other comments that might have come up in a meeting, we can do that. But these are the written comments, and these are all of the written comments that came through my email box. That's where they came from.
Co-chairs, you have hands raised from Ashley Ruff and Mandela Deskins, and well, Joel Castan, but you're a co-chair, so I think Joel, you can, Commissioner Castan, you can speak up whenever you want.
So who would like to volunteer to go through all of the meetings and help pull out comments?
That's why I raised my hand. I'm willing to do it because I know that we had comments that were actually written down, and I screenshotted some of them, so I have them on deck.
We'll get together after the meeting.
Awesome.
Okay, moving right along. Next section. Oh, we got some hands.
Co-chair, I just had a quick question.
Yes.
So my question about that was kind of like the process. There are only 7 major substantive comments raised by the public. I guess it's kind of like, you know, when Max said, well, we could add some other comments, you were like, there's only so much space. So maybe it might be good, and maybe this isn't something that we have to necessarily figure out completely right now, but maybe we do. We need to kind of figure out what exactly we want this section to say, because, you know, we have several comments that basically talk about wanting to form one west of the river ANC, and it seems like that could easily be one comment with all of the statements to why that was the case in its own, while we have like 2 comments that were really our guiding principles overall, like using the civic association boundaries, the major streets and highways. Those are things that we discussed as a task force. Those did not come from emails that we may have got or chat comments from people who brought it up. So I think I'm fine with that, but I think that maybe we could agree here that we should try to grab sort of broad themes that came from the public and make those the comments instead of these kind of almost arbitrary individuals. So like one good example would be like, there should probably be a comment about the Deanwood community wanting themselves to, you know, wanting to shift their boundaries, and the Capitol View community wanting to shift theirs, since those were like groups of people who made those comments, as well as the west of the river. The argument for having one ANC west of the river was made by a lot of people, but it was also made by like there was a specific set of ideas that was shared over and over again. So it just makes sense to put that all together. I think that would just help us get a better grasp of what the public comments were, without it kind of being like an individual, more piecemeal approach.
I agree. That's why Ashley Ruff and I are going to get together and revisit comments after this is over. We're not going to do it right now.
Yeah.
And again, I said these were the written comments. I didn't say they came from overall every meeting. This was the easiest place to get comments because they were all in one place, and we were under a time crunch, and we had to get a draft out.
I understand. There's no, I'm not holding you personally responsible. I was just giving like a little bit of feedback of how maybe we could do it to kind of deal with people's concerns while also getting all the information that we wanted to share.
Thank you, sir. Maps and recommended boundaries, or do I see another hand? Or is that an old hand? Ashley Ruff, you have a hand up. Is that an old hand?
Yeah, it's an old hand. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Patricia Stamper.
I just wanted to amplify Max's statement about, and Mandela's about putting in the comment section about how Deanwood community came to the task force and asked for our community to fall into one ANC rather than being split between two. And I also want to thank all the task force members for their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Nisha Petruni, I see your hand.
I just wanted to know, and this is in the chat, but I think process-wise, it sounds like there's enough task force members who would like to propose amending this section. Do we need to formally say, like, we want to propose amending this section? Because you mentioned we really want to focus on not necessarily comments or edits, but amendments to the report. Is this significant enough to be considered an amendment? Do we need to propose that? Or from a process standpoint, how do we maybe move the conversation forward, but note this as an action item?
I don't see it as a substantial amendment to address comments. I see that as a minor issue.
Okay.
We're already on record with Task Force Member Ashley Ruff is going to work through this section with myself and Co-Chair Castone. We're already part of the report writing team. So we'll work it out amongst the three of us. And we will make adjustments. That's what this is about, making adjustments. Maps and recommended boundaries. Now, this is not my section, so I'll stop talking. And I'm not sure who had this section. If you're on and you recognize who had this
I covered
section.
this one.
This is Justin? Okay.
Yeah. Just to walk people through the section, the purpose of this was just to outline what map we had that the task force had approved as the majority position in the redistricting tool. We also specified that we have a hard copy map that has some edits to those single member districts because of census blocks that had to be split up for various reasons, either due to population or to create districts like the one that represents DC jail, or to get more coherent neighborhood representation. The next part breaks down where these census block splits happen. So I'll just walk them really quickly because this is really inside baseball, in the weeds type stuff. But on our map, we propose a split in the proposed 7BO or 7A02 and 7A03 area. That's the Mayfair SMD and the Parkside SMD. The reason of that, I think actually Commissioner Wright mentioned in the chat, if you don't do that, you end up with a Mayfair SMD with 2,800 people in it, and that's way too much for anyone. The next split we talk about is between 7B01 and 7F03, and that was to simplify the boundaries between 7B and 7F, so that 7F isn't split in half and the community is held together in Greenway. The 7B04 and 7B08 split is down near Penn Branch. There's a census tract or census block that just sort of shoots off and down one block and is a really irregular shape. The task force members from the area wanted to simplify that, so those folks would be represented in a more consistent manner. There's another proposal between 7C and 7C03 and 7C09 that would move Ayton Elementary School or keep it in 7C03. I think that might be where it's currently at. For whatever reason, the census block is drawn in a way that moves that elementary school from the adjacent neighborhood to another area. The last one is the census block split census block split for 7F06 and 7F07. That's the one that creates a designated SMD for the DC jail, and another SMD for the surrounding Reservation 13 area and part of the Hill East area. That is the map section. So next is rationale, which I think is Keith Toweries.
All right.
Oh, I see a question from Travis Swanson. So Travis, is that a question related to the mapping section? I'm actually, you might be muted. I can't hear you right now. I heard you a moment ago.
How about now?
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Thank you. I just had a question, or actually an amendment to this area I'd like to propose that is substantive. At our last meeting when we were finalizing the map, I had proposed an amendment for a census block split between 7B03 and 7B05 to make sure that the 2900 block of Park Avenue, or I'm sorry, of Park Drive was wholly in 7B05, and I don't see that amendment. That amendment was unanimously approved, and I don't see it reflected in here. Okay. So I'd just like to make sure that that gets added.
Yep, definitely. I saw that in the chat. So 7B03 and 7B05. Sure, the what block and what street was that again?
So that was where that's where the park separates the Hillcrest neighborhood from the Randall Highlands neighborhood. And for some reason, the census block puts exactly one house on Park Drive, on the 2900 block of Park Drive, into the Randall Highlands commission rather than the Hillcrest commission. And we want to make sure that they're in the neighborhood with their commission, or sorry, in the SMD with their next door, their immediate neighbors, rather than the neighbors across the park from them. So the proposal on the amendment was whatever is the easiest, just draw a straight line across the park, or there's a hiking trail in there if we want to follow find something to follow, that would be fine too, but just to make sure that that 2900 block remains united with their neighbors in Hillcrest in the 7B05 SMD.
I think I have an illustration from you from a while back that has that. So I'll pull that up and add it into the report for later then.
Right, thank you.
And then I'll write that up in here and specify all the rigmarole.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions about this stuff before we go on to rationale? And that's Keith's section. Angela.
I just wanted to just note, I put it in the chat, but on the 7C03, that campus of ATOM was already was also in the 2010 map as well. So as it currently stands, the way that SMD is drawn, that same carve out for the school exists. So I just wanted to say that it's kind of like a continuation of what exists. Thank you.
You up next, Keith.
Okay. So what you guys are going to see in the rationale section is it kind of made in tables. Just I thought it would be easier to read. The first row will always talk about what's currently happening, and the second column on the first row will talk about the recommended area. Then we have a base for the justification as the next row. And below that, we have the population breakdowns. Any population that was outside of the 19 to 2100 parameters, we made red. So it should drag your attention or grab your attention. We'll say exception requested if it was outside of those parameters. And also we try to provide any legal justification that we could find to talk about that. In particular, what you'll see through most of these tables is that we know that there's a 10% deviation allowance by statute. So we have that in there. So the first one you saw was just a 7A. We didn't have 7D, right? In this new recommended map, we had 7A, so you have a picture there. And we talked about some of the neighborhoods in there. We also talked about the arguments about things being compact and contiguous. And we even identified the principal arterial roads or other connector roads to help us arrive to the decision. For the next one, 7B, same thing, right? Maybe I'll just talk about the neighborhoods just so people can hear the neighborhoods. Greenway, Twining, Fairlawn, DuPont, Randall Highlands, Penn Branch, Hillcrest, Naylor Gardens, Fairfax Village, and Fort Davis. We had a few SMDs here that did have a little lower population than some in 7B, but we made sure that we provided a justification as to that. One of the things that we do have that is common east of the river is that we do have some apartment complexes that when you try to add them to other SMDs, it really throws off the counts significantly. So we're hoping that with that knowledge, OP will grant that exception and the council will grant that exception. So we can really have manageable, full equal representation for all of the single member district representatives. We can go down to 7C. 7C, we talking about the neighborhoods of Deanwood, Burville, Northeast Boundary, East Corner, Capitol Gateway, Capitol View, Lincoln Heights, Benning Heights, Central Northeast. And I think we only had one in which we're asking for an exception. And it was just slightly over 2,100, but we still want to make sure that we provide that proper justification. Same thing too, it dealt with just having multiple dwelling units that just would have thrown the count off if we would have put it in a different one. And I do see that Max hand is raised. Can I acknowledge him as, since I believe he might be raising his hand talking about 7C?
I'm going to jump
Please,
in. Assume that yes, I can speak. Thank you, Keith. This looks great. I really like how you've organized this report. It's really clear and easy to follow. I really appreciate all the work you've put in. I wanted to ask if it might make sense to include a sentence for 7C07, where we mention that error of 1019. I know it's flagged in the map, but it's not discussed in the document. And I don't want to leave that ambiguity floating out there for misinterpretation. For folks who haven't attended the 5 meetings in which we've discussed this, there's clearly an enumeration error or some sort of interpolation of additional population that doesn't exist in that square. That square has a maximum population of probably 20 or 40 people. Instead, it's been scaled up to 1,000 people, which is not an appropriate level. So I just want to make sure we put that language in there. Thank you. I see somebody already writing it. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you, Max. And also, Justin, I think I tend to do with Travis' lovely community, I might have spelled Randall incorrectly. And Travis brought that up too, that I messed up the name of his spelling. Feel free to only put one L on Marshall Heights, Travis, next time you talk about Marshall Heights. Okay, so where was I at? 7C. I think I covered 7C. If we can go down to 7D. 7D looks a little different, and it's only because we don't have a 7D any longer, right? We're proposing to go out with the 07D and create this new beautiful joint ANC that will span across both east and west of the river, which will be 7A. But we did provide a crosswalk so people can just see what the formal SMDs were, just so it can be clear. The next section is 7E. As you guys recall from the last call, some of the commissioners of 7E raised the concern about not having that additional SMD, so we can have 8. 7F was very generous to give land so we can create that. I think that's within here about that argument. And there was one particular SMD that was over in 7E, and I think that's probably down below as we scroll down, we'll see it. And it's the same situation. This is very close to the area in which there's just a lot of multiple dwelling units. And if you would have selected that particular square or a surrounding square that is also has a lot of multiple dwellings, it would have just threw the population count out. So we're gonna ask for exception for that. Now that brings us to 7F. And I think 7F was probably the most complicated. And we only really start to get some resolution on it now as we've gotten those new updated maps from OP. And this might need some more tinkering to really get it to where it needs to be. But the first one you see, 7F01, that's definitely over that's outside of the 1900 to 2100, and we are definitely asking for exception for that. And that's due to the Park 7 apartments, right? They weren't there 10 years ago, and there's a lot of different things that are there now. So the multiple dwelling units there really throw that count off, and if you try to put it anywhere else, it just doesn't look right. It looks like it could be quote unquote gerrymandered. So it's just the best place for that to be. The 7F06, and I guess we need to work on that. I guess we did the census block request, and I don't know if that number is accurate right now. So I really rely on Justin to kind of guide us there. And then the last one with the 2260, that number may be also, we need to work on those numbers, but that concludes my parts with the justification, and thank you for that time. I do see that Mr. Swanson's hand is raised. Commissioner Swanson.
And Keith, real quick,
thank
those
you,
were the
Keith.
numbers we got from Office of Planning.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, we gotta think that through a little bit.
Thank you, Keith. I appreciate you changing the spelling to the LE, but I did have one other thing for under the justification section of 7B02. It says that it's an attempt to keep the Randall Highlands community united, and that should actually read the Twining community.
You got that, Justin? I'm gonna take his silence to mean that he got it. Did you want to say one more time though, Commissioner Swanson?
Sure, I just threw it in the chat also, but the 7B02 justification, if you scroll up, what it says is that the population is to keep Randall Highlands community whole, but it's actually the Twining community that encompasses most of that SMD.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, that doesn't conclude my section. I think the next up is Mr. Campbell, Commissioner Campbell.
Hi, excuse me. Well, the minority report simply is that. What would you like me to say other than the fact that, we don't agree with the majority report, but the minority report is showing west of the river as a single ANC, staying within the 5% boundaries of the redistricting. The map is included. I am not certain what it is you would like me to say. I see some of the comments in the chat of people wondering why, and I don't want to put my own personal views in this. So in not doing so, I'm going to say that the minority report in here creates a west of the river ANC. It also creates from some of the east of the river commissioners' submissions a complete east of the river ANC. The issues on west of the river is it keeps the neighborhoods contiguous. It respects natural boundaries, stays within the 5% limits of the 1900 minimum and 2000 maximum. 2100 maximum, I'm sorry. It separates the jail as its own SMD, unfortunately, because of the 2,386 number that OP has given us for the jail population. It moves the rest, and I still don't see the map is here, but it moves the rest of the Reservation 13 into the proposed 7803 SMD.
I'd like I could show the map on the screen so people can see that a little easier.
Okay, I'll wait till you do that. This particular map just shows the west of the river ANC. There is a map in addition to this that shows a 4 Ward 7 breakdown. As you can see here, in 7803, that number of 4,193 is misleading because actually what it does, it combines the 1,807 members from the area to the left, which would be 7803, with the jail population, which is 2,386. Unfortunately, the tool does not allow you to divide them out and to show you, to put the numbers there. But that is a combination of the 1807 and the proposed 7803 with the 2,386 and the jail population. Okay, the proposed line, and again, the tool does not allow you to draw a line down to separate Reservation 13. So it again addresses the issues of a walkable bicycle, scooter, walkable bike area of residents, and keeps the ANC contiguous in that area. So I'm open to questions if anyone has any. I think that basically covers the points.
I have a question.
Sure, Dr. D.
So forgive me because I am reading on this meeting, because I know you guys were diligently working on this to the very last minute. I appreciate all of your efforts. I have a question about the structure. So the question I have is, I have a question about one comment in the minority report, one line, and do we actually have evidence to support one line in the minority report, but also.
What are you referring to?
Well, it's hard, since I don't control the scrolling, if we can go to the minority report section, maybe I can stop there. The last line of the first paragraph, I'm wondering about, A, how do we know that that's actually true? And two, is that, to me, that creates a concern around an issue of gerrymandering. There are, 4 major ways in which communities are gerrymandered, and keeping current ANC members either intentionally zoning them out or intentionally zoning them in is a form of gerrymandering. So I'm wondering, why would we get into a conversation about what current commissioners want from either side of the river? I just think we're the representatives of the task force. Some of us are commissioners, some of us are not. I don't think that that's particularly helpful. So I think that comment should be removed. I don't know that we have evidence to support it, and I don't think it's helpful around the conversation of potential gerrymandering.
In as much as these comments from current, there are comments that were written by current commissioners west of the river who sent in written comments, and so that is that's what that sentence is based on. Now, again, I'm sure we can go back and pull those, if you're concerned about that, pull those specific comments out with those specific commissioners if you want to name in the report, as well as the residents. I mean.
No, that's not what I'm saying. So let me try one more time.
Okay.
It's also supported by commissioners. The lack of specificity leads to, I'm unsure about how many, and I don't need names, but the lack of specificity raises a concern to me, because it could be 1 or 2 and the statement is being made to seem like it's more, or it could be more. And so I believe that it needs to be out before the reasons of conflict of interest, first of all, and second, because it lacks specificity and detail that it's not helpful. Those are my 2 thoughts about it. The other piece about it is, question I have is around the structure of the report itself. I see that the majority report is made, then the minority report is made. Do we have to address specifically the issues in the minority rationale. I haven't had a chance to read it completely, but I'm wondering, should that not be a part of this report?
I'm not certain I follow you, but and again, the general consensus in the minority report is based on comments from residents, from existing commissioners. I mean, again, if it was necessary, if you wanted, I will go back with Ashley and go back through the reports and pull specific comments out. Again, it is a minority report, it's a recommendation. I mean, there is also the feeling that the majority report is heavily favored and disregards any and all concerns of a small minority. I mean, so that is the whole premise behind the minority report, is to reflect the desires and wishes of a small minority.
No, I believe there should be a minority report. I'm not suggesting that, Mr. Campbell. I want you to understand that's not my nuanced question. Okay, I have a question about format. Do we need to address the issues raised in the minority report, one? And two, is this line sufficiently detailed to actually be, do we know that it's accurate? Those are my two comments. And I'm just raising them. We can move on, but I really want to know more about the format. Do we have to answer explicitly these concerns in the minority report?
I hear what you're saying, and again, my stance is that yes, they should be, because they do reflect. There is sufficient evidence from comments, written comments from present members of the commission, ANC commissioners, as well as residents. And again, I don't want to belabor the point. I mean, yes, we can talk about this offline or whatever, but I feel that that is an accurate reflection and should be included in the minority report.
What about the format question? I don't know. I wasn't a part of the writing report. Do we have to explicitly address their concerns? I'm wondering. Do we have to speak to each one of them?
So what, the commissioners?
The task force. That's why I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. So that's why I'm going to move on from there. I am asking a question of format now. Does the task force need to explicitly address each of the concerns raised here?
You mean the majority task force? Is that what you're asking me? That they should address each one of the concerns of the minority report?
Yeah, I'm asking, do we have to explicitly? I know our argument is embedded in the comments, but I am wondering, do we have to explicitly address the concerns raised in the minority report?
Well,
that's not a question to you, Mr. Campbell. That's a question to the task force. Okay, I just want you to know. I know.
But again, Dr. Dean, to your point, it would also be one that I would ask that the minority is also able to address our concerns in the majority report.
I thought that's what these are.
Yeah.
I thought this is.
It sounds to me as if you are, for lack of a better description, nitpicking what we're doing. And so therefore, if that is going to be the case, and if it's going to be a matter of specificity in pulling out various points, then we're going to have a point by point issue of addressing issues in the majority report also. And that is going to make this
if it's not required, all I need to know is that it's not required, and I can move on. But I wanted to know, are we required to answer their concerns explicitly? That's my question.
All right.
Chair Blair and Castone, I don't know. I'm asking a question. Are we required to explicitly answer the concerns of the minority report?
The minority has a position that they are free to express as part of the overall report. To deny them that expression, I think, is a little heavy-handed.
I did not.
There's nothing there. Let me finish.
I don't want you to answer her question that I didn't answer.
Let me finish.
Okay.
There's nothing there that is inaccurate. If you want specific numbers of commissioners, we can provide that. We don't mention names because no one's name specifically is mentioned throughout the report.
Okay, this has become a distraction. Let's move on because that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I called for. I asked a very specific question about format. That's it. We can move on. I trust we'll just move on. I'm asking, generally, you have an argument, there's a rebuttal, and then there's a response to the rebuttal. I'm asking, do we have to provide a response to the rebuttal? That's it. If we don't, then we can move on. I am not. That's what I'm asking.
Well, let's move on.
Okay.
So, sorry. I have a similar process question. If I could get clarity before we moved on. So in the first half of the report, I'm sorry, am I recognized, Chair?
Go right ahead.
Okay, yeah. The first half of until we got to the minority rationale, we had feedback. We had folks saying like, you should say this instead of that, like asking questions about different things and kind of getting into, not real deep because most of it was pretty easy, but getting into some kind of agreement about different parts. Just so everyone who is listening is clear, this report was not written by the 16 people who voted for the map, right? Like it involved people who did not vote for the map and as well, unless I'm incorrect. And so I guess I thought that this was that moment for us to kind of go through, make corrections, see things, ask questions, come to determinations about how we should move forward. But it's seeming like that is for the 16 of us, only the majority report, or we should say the rest of the report. And for the minority rationale, the 3 people who voted against it, this is just for them or from Mr. Campbell as a representative to just explain to us what agreements, what they wrote, and we just listen to it and just have to take it in. Is that what we are doing here? I just wanted to be clear so that I can know like how I should think about this.
This is the minority writing to explain the support for the 2 maps that support our desire. It's in a different format. There is no required format. The majority chose a format that they preferred. The minority chose a format that we preferred. It's not a conflict. There's not a requirement on the format. It's up to us to write it as we choose.
Okay, so just for a point of clarity, when this report was prepared, the majority did the writing in one area and the minority did the writing in the minority section. And so we're just hearing each other's things, but like if there's any feedback or any things we want to add, we're to keep it to our section. Is that how the whole process went? Sorry, I just want to be all the way clear on what went on and what we're doing here now.
The minority report is contributions from myself, Commissioner Alcorn, and also Commissioner Campbell.
Absolutely.
The majority section was Commissioner Felder, who else? Keith Towery, and I believe Eric Rogers might have also been part of that.
Okay, got it. So they wrote their section, you all wrote
They wrote their section, we wrote our section.
Okay.
But it's all in the same, it's all in the same report. And it's really intended to be a representation of how we got to where we are. So it's not a question of, well, I don't agree with what they said, so we should change it This is us being able to speak to what we would prefer as the minority. So it's not a right or wrong. This is us expressing ourselves and based on information that we've gathered along the way to come to the conclusion that we've come to.
And I really appreciate that. And I would just clarify, I don't think, like, for example, if I looked at this, I mean, okay, let's just be right. We should lay the cards on the table. Obviously, the minority doesn't agree. The majority does on what they came up with, right? So I just want to make sure we are still in our right to ask questions of things that were proposed in the minority, just like anybody should be in the majority. I don't understand if that's not the case, then that's fine. But I thought that, like, if there were questions like Dr. Dean was asking now, I mean, that's in the right of us, right? Like, we can't, we're not saying let's have a vote to change it. Like, we're going to outvote you to change it. But if there are certain things that, like, we want clarity on, or we want to record that are like, maybe this should have been that and not this, that's okay, right? Because I thought that was what we were here for.
Sure.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because it almost sounded like, stay out of our business, we'll stay out of yours, which seems sort of strange, because even if we didn't agree, this is our combined task force report. This isn't like this isn't like the Supreme Court where we write an opinion and the minority writes an opinion and we hand in different briefs, right? So that's just what I was trying to understand.
Right. It's our report, but this is from the minority perspective. And we can count up and put specific numbers in for the number of commissioners. I'm sure Commissioner Campbell off the top of his head know how many it is. But it's—
I wasn't even addressing that. It's fine. I was just getting the clarity. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't want you to have to feel like you had to talk to me
It's
about
our
that.
report, and it's just a synopsis of things we went through, things we experienced to get to where we are.
Totally understand.
Okay.
No problem. Totally understand. Okay, thank you.
And I got my hand up.
Who's that?
It's Keith.
Keith.
So thank you too for further explaining the minority rationale. I got a slight speech, then I have a question. Sorry about that. So the slight speech is, through this entire process, for folks that had to reorganize or make numbers make sense within communities, I think the majority of us did, try to consult with the existing commissioners, try to consult with the existing commission areas, just to kind of hear any concerns, to figure out if there's a reason why something may have been drawn a certain way 10 years ago, right? So I want to say that. I just wanted to make that statement. I made that statement because, a lot of commissioners are pissed. A lot of commissioners are upset with what this final thing looked like, right? And although, this minority rationale speaks to that commissioners were upset, the reason why we were appointed for this task force is for us to make the decisions, right? If we so happen to have commissioners on this task force that are actually sitting commissioners, what a great coincidence, and that's great. But I don't know if we should be involving outside voices from outside of task force members appointed on this body. You heard point blank from the commissioners in 7E, they were pissed. They were upset when they did not have some of those numbers, and we had to go back to the drawing board to work it out, right? But you don't see that reflected in any of our portion of the report. I think that I appreciate the additional intel, right? But I don't think that this report is designed to capture voices outside of the task force. That would also include the meeting that you guys talk about that occurred on March 17th, which wasn't a meeting that wasn't officiated from the task force. I think anything outside of the task force should not be in the report, whether that's in the overall report or even in the minority rationale.
Well, then we have to take out the public comments because that's not the task force speaking. Those are people outside of the public. But
I'm fine with that, to be honest with you. I think we should take out those comments.
But that comment section is in the template for us to follow. So now we're
okay.
And we have to have the public comments. I mean,
I
the
think
public
comments-
came to a meeting.
Yeah, if you came to a meeting, that's different.
And so we have to reflect the public comments, so that's, to me, that's a non-negotiable. People came, they had their voices, they made their voices, spoke their voices, and we have to reflect what it was. Now, I think for me, similar to what Dr. Dean and similar to what Keith are saying, this report should be what our recommendation is. And if there needs to be a minority rationale, it should be a smaller section, in my opinion, that the dissenting opinion, 3 out of 19 feel X, Y, and Z. Here's the supporting documentation. But incorporating other information outside of the task force in our deliberative process, I think is unfair. Because then, I should give you the Hillcrest stuff. Then we should give you the Fort Davis stuff. Then we should give you the, all the other neighborhoods that had meetings, that had opinions on, and I apologize for the ambulance going by.
You could have done that. You could have done that if that's what you all wanted to include. You could do that. There's no limitation to say that you can't include that. If you want to go back and add that.
So, but then there's also no limitation then for us to strike elements of the report that we feel don't represent the view of the task force. You would agree to that then too?
Well, actually, the whole minority rationale is not something that the majority of the task force supports.
No, but I mean in the template. I guess I'm referring through the template that we received from the council.
I'm not sure I'm following you because the
is there a minority rationale in the template, the overall template that we got from the council?
It is not in the template. However, in speaking to the office of the subcommittee, I was told we can add that. So we added that portion in there.
No, understood. I just wanted to, understand if it was in the official template, but we can add any additional information that we choose.
I sent an email to, I don't know if I sent it to everybody, I sent to the writer saying that you can add sections, you can add items as attachments. The template was a starting point, not an all-encompassing, this is all you can include in the report.
Understood.
Well, since we can make I make a motion that we add a section rebutting the arguments made in the minority rationale portion.
I would like to second Dr. Dean's motion that she just put on the floor. Let's call a question on that.
Chair Blair, do I get to say anything? I mean, this task force is heavily weighted to east of the river. There are 19 people on this task force, of which 5 are west of the river. And quite frankly, we have felt that our concerns, our issues have been roundly ignored. I mean, there's been discussion and discussion and discussion. There's been talk about maintaining community groups and the civic associations and keeping them whole. Specifically, you talked about Deanwood, you talked about Fort DuPont, but when it came to a community which was west of the river, then there doesn't seem to be any argument other than we need to divide this community. All right, so you have a majority report, you have a minority report. You don't get to choose to edit, disregard parts and parcels of the minority report. It is a minority report. It is a viewpoint expressed by those of us who are not in agreement. You can add a rebuttal, but you don't get the position of coming in and taking those pieces out.
I'm not asking to take anything out.
Chair,
I put a
excuse me, Task Force
motion
member,
that.
Co-chair,
I put a motion
Co-chair,
that.
co-chair, Task Force member, may I please interject for a second? Thank you. We have before us the opportunity to make amendments. And it seemed like amendment was suggested. That's what we're going to do. Let's move forward to vote on this amendment so we can continue with the analyzation or the report itself. Because we're about to get caught right here. We've been here for quite some time, right? And I think that because we have the opportunity to make an amendment, with Co-Chair Blair and I did discuss earlier with that, and we said in the emails that when an amendment is presented, we have to vote on the amendment, put it in writing, and then we can have the amendment put in here. All voices need to be heard, the minority and the majority. And the same thing, the rationale we came on earlier with working with Miss Ashley about the comment session, which I think was a very fair and a very reasonable suggestion that was made. So I'm asking that we, Co-Chair, that we can move on with the rest of the document and that we can make a vote for this amendment.
You state
We
the
can vote for
amendment,
the
please.
amendment, and then we can have and then we can see what the majority task force members want to do at the vote is dictating that we should do. And after we do that, we will move on accordingly. We don't need to litigate and continue to go the same things we're going over. So with that being stated, Mr. Mandel, I see your hand is up. If that answers your question, sir, can we please move on, Co-Chair?
It's down.
Thank you, sir.
Co-chair,
All right,
I'm going
Co-Chair.
to ask you to take over at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Chair Gaston, would you mind stating what the amendment is?
Yes, Dr. Dean made an amendment for this section to be to have language that will no, that wasn't an amendment. I misspoke.
I can say it again if you want
Can
me
you
to.
please make it? Yes, please. Thank you.
I would like a section that specifically addresses each of the minority reports concerns, that we speak to them and that we give our rationale for in each of the areas of their concern, that we add that section. That is what I'm asking for. I'm making a motion for the amendment to the report to reflect those things.
Okay, make sure I counted. I didn't catch it. I caught you spoke clearly, but I don't know why you catch everything. Good God, help me, God. One more time, please. Make it a little, say it slower for me, please.
Okay, I am making a motion that this report include what we can call, in short, a rebuttal, but specifically addresses each of the areas of concern in the minority rationale to offer what the position is, the reason why we made certain decisions that they raise in their minority report rationale.
Okay, I got it now. I comprehended that time. Thank you for slowing it down a little bit for me too. So making sure, I'm just want to reiterate that, and then we noted, got it, noted. Okay, moving on with the document. Mr. Campbell, I know you were and again, Mr. Campbell, thank you very much. You're a very thoughtful and analytical person that I was just telling my son how much I really admire the way you think.
I appreciate this, sir. I would just like an opportunity to ask that we also get to include a rebuttal to that.
Well, I would say that the reason why the amendment was raised, which I'm looking from being fair as a co-chair, right? I'm not favoring one side or the other. Really, I'm not. But if I understood the amendment correctly, is that saying that we have something here that needs to be here, because this is a sentiment that it has been expressed. But also, there's another sentiment is saying that, hey, this is how we try to solve that. And it's basically all voice matters. It's giving everyone an opportunity to be able to speak. But we're going to vote on it. But right now, let's continue with the document. Justin, can you please continue to just scroll down or scroll up? I don't know which one it is. Scroll down.
We're not going to vote on the motion at this time because
we need to vote on the motion.
We need to vote on the motion? Absolutely. Thank you, Justin, for keeping me on track. All right. I'll go down the list with the names, and we're going to simply say accept or decline. Starting with, I'll come up. Starting with Tamika. Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, could you repeat the motion one more time, Chair?
Yes, the motion was raised by Dr. Dean, and it is based on an amendment suggestion by Dr. Dean to rebut as a rebuttal to the minority rationale. So basically, it's not a standalone. The minority rationale is sound, but the motion is to have a rebuttal to the minority rationale so it can be balanced. That's the motion. Did I answer your question, Madeline? I think, but that you answer it? Oh, Nisha?
Can I offer a friendly amendment to the motion?
Please do, Herb.
My friendly amendment is to make the minority rationale an attachment to the overall report. Looking at the template of the report as written, it has a rationale and everything that, that we're trying to put forward, and any other viewpoints and accessory information that doesn't support the rationale should be an attachment.
I accept that friendly amendment to my motion.
Yeah, and same thing to you, Herb. Just you smart as ever too. I caught it basically saying that one more time, Herb. So I'm taking notes here, so I get it.
The minority rationale would become in its entirety an attachment to the report.
Okay. I definitely see what you're saying there.
And I said,
Dr.
I
Dean,
accept that friendly amendment to my motion. I do.
And I would like to second the friendly motion and call the question so we can get the votes going and vote on Travis's amendment that we have not yet voted on.
Okay, so just for clarity, the amendment that was advanced by Dr. Dean has been modified to be an attachment and not the main body of the document itself. Okay, let's move forward. As we are dictated to do to vote on any amendments. Okay, I'm starting with Tamika. Yes or no?
Yes.
Ashley Ruff. Advance or decline, Ashley?
I'm here. I'm sorry. I had to hit the
No
unmute
problem.
button.
I understand.
I approve it.
Okay, thank you. Lee Wilson.
Yes.
Justin Leamy.
No.
Thank you. Melissa Freeze.
Just one more time, I'm sorry, just double checking on the amendment. The amendment is to now make the minority rationale an addendum, an attachment?
Yes.
But no rebuttal?
But no rebuttal, yes. The rebuttal has been moved.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thank you, Melissa. Tamla Blair.
No.
Manuel Deskin.
Yes.
Burke Rogers.
Yes.
Travis Swanson.
Yes.
Francis Campbell.
No.
Brian is not here. Okay. We'll give it to Brian. He asked early, can he vote via proxy? Marla Dean. Hold on.
Yes.
Oh, that was man. Okay, sorry about that. Max Richard.
Yes.
Patricia Stamper.
Yes.
Thank you. Wendell Felder. Wendell. Let's go. Wendell wasn't absent. And Alcorn also absent. Okay. Nisha Petruni.
Yes.
Okay. Keith Tari.
Yes.
Caprice Cass.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, Joel Castone. I'm going to vote. I'm voting no. All right, we got this done as an official tally. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 task force members voted yes for this amendment. 1, 2, 3, 4 task members voted no to this amendment. And we had 2 task force members who were absent and could not vote. So we would seek their vote via proxy. Thank you very much, task force member. Can we continue with the document, Justin?
Yep, we're good.
Does somebody need a motion to vote on Travis's amendment?
I can't hear you, Nisha. Turn it down a little bit, Nisha, please. Your volume.
I move Travis's amendment.
Does someone need a motion? Thanks, Eric. I second that.
Yes, thank you, Nisha.
I say it for me, Patricia. What did you say?
I said I second Travis's motion. Eric said we need to vote on it, and we didn't because that was the original amendment that was talked about earlier for 7B.
Oh, that one. Yeah, we never got it.
I have a point of order about that. That was in the map that you passed, so that's not a substantive amendment to what we have here. That was an oversight in writing the report. So
yeah,
the task force already approved that
yeah,
change.
we don't need to vote on that one. It was if what he said, it was oversight. That wasn't deliberately left.
As long as it's included, that's fine by me. I'll withdraw.
Right, absolutely. Thanks for flagging that too, Travis. Okay, we are at the whole census block. We discussed that enough.
The task force action section, unless there are more things to discuss in the minority position.
Okay.
Are we talking about Reservation 13? Is that what you're asking? You're talking about the census? If we were talking about the census block here, that was Reservation 13. Is that on the maps you cannot separate that the jail population out, and we have not been able to get clarity from OP as to where that 2386. The number has vacillated between 2100 and 2386. It could be the inmates at the jail. It also could account for, when we got the numbers from OP, there was the inmates of the jail, the inmates of the residents of C. Sosa, the residents of the Harriet Tubman shelter, and 29 individuals unaccounted for. And so we have not been able to get clarification as to where what comprises those numbers. What we have suggested is that if those numbers were inclusive and all in the same geographical area, which is south of Massachusetts Avenue, then it would be the position to draw the extension of Massachusetts Avenue down to the river, eastbound, where the back boundary, so to speak, would be Congressional Cemetery, and move the rest of Reservation 13 into the adjacent S&D. It would also account for the fact that the population of the jail is unique in its issues and the things that it has to address, and it would be, to say the least, unfair to assign a commissioner who would not be able to address issues of those residents outside, such as, for instance, on the Park Kennedy establishment, which was not counted in the 2020 census. And so in that proposal, again, the population of the 7803, which is 1807, is actually two numbers above the minimum of 5% deviation of 1805. And so if you were to take into account, and the last time I spoke to the builders of the Park Kennedy, it was at roughly 89% occupied. So at that point, if they were to take in the residents there and any future build out over the next 10 years, that would bring those numbers up significantly. And in which case, in the next redistricting would again have to be looked at to be further subdivided. So again, it speaks to the continuity of, in all of the maps around the city, the general non-residential areas are contiguous and adjacent to the residential areas or S&Ds. So it's going along that same rationale that we would move those areas into the adjacent 7803. Now, again, to speak to that, I'm not married to the fact that it has to be in 7803. It could also be in the proposed 7802. So, but both of those areas are contiguous to Reservation 13. So that was why and again,
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't want to.
Again, it also respects the natural boundaries, which is the river, and keeping the area contiguous.
All right. Justin, how much do we have left of the document? Can you the rest of the document, please?
I don't think there's much of it other than, because it is just basically speaking to the hard copies and what the issues are. It just addresses those things. So it wasn't extensive. It was not an extensive minority report. We did not envision, for instance, 10 pages. In comparison to the majority report, it is rather small.
Right. Can you scroll down the rest of the document? Definitely.
Stone, to answer your question, this is the last part of the report itself.
Oh, great.
After that, it's just attachments, which are maps that.
Right. So it's nothing else significant that needs to be discussed.
It's just maps.
Yeah. Okay. So great. Before I acknowledge you, Amanda, I wanted to say this here. To the rest of the task force members, the next important part of us is simply to just vote to say that we want to advance this along the next process. I want to give two recaps that we had. The first one was the fact that we stated that those bullet points that Ashley, Co-Chair Blair, and I was going to work together to add some of those other major concerns that was raised in the chat. Right, that's the first thing we did, and we already covered our amendment as it was first advanced through Dr. Dean and then modified through Eric Rogers, and the entire task force member voted on it a 3-4 with 2 absentees. So with that being stated, if there is any other pressing question, can we handle our final leg of business? That's to say, vote, not to say it's perfect, but to move it along as our contribution up to this point. With that being stated, I don't see any hands. Thumbs up. I'll start again, and we'll come down and make our vote to accept or advance. Let me cross this section out, so I'm gonna make this bad, okay? And I'll start with, only because I had already did it this way, I'll go in the same order, that way I can keep a record. And so that's starting with you, Tamika. Tamika, will that be an advance or decline?
Advance with the amendment.
Yes, the amendment, that's what I already talked about. That's official. That's the, we ain't have to worry about that no more. We got that. Advance. Okay, thank you, Tamika. That will be Ashley Ruff.
Oh, I just put in the chat. It's an advancement on my end too.
Thank you, Ashley. Lee Wilson.
Advance.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Justin. We say Justin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Melissa.
Advance, please.
Thank you. Tamala Blair.
Decline.
Manuela Deskin.
Advance.
Eric Rogers.
Let's go to round 2, advance.
I got nervous there, Eric. Travis Swanson.
I vote yes.
Francis Campbell.
Fine.
I got you at FC. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Brian Alcorn. Oh, he's not here. Okay.
Brian
Sorry.
submitted a proxy email today.
Yeah, I remember. I'm so robotic over here. I'm on autopilot right now.
Okay.
Dr. Dean.
Advance.
Thank you. Max Richmond.
Yes, advance.
Thank you, Mr. Max. Patricia Stamper.
Please advance the map.
Thank you, Ms. Patricia. When there was out. Nisha Patruni.
Advance.
Thank you, Nisha. Keith Tyree.
Advance.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. Capricia Casson.
Advance.
Thank you. And I'm also voting to advance this map forward. We didn't land this plane. That was the last official business that we had.
The report. So this is a vote on the report, not the map.
No, that was the report. That was the report with the amendments, correct?
Right, but I heard the word map, but it's not the map.
Okay, let me reiterate what I said. I would like to advance the report. Let the record show I would like to advance the report, and my name is Patricia Stamper.
Yeah, I might have made a mistake. That probably was me. I could have said map unconsciously by accident, but I'll be referring to the report. With that being stated, co-chair, we've done with this pressing business. Before I turn back over to you, just want to say again, on behalf of, it was an honor to work with you all. This was a long, arduous task, but we got here, we made it happen, right? And this is what democracy looks like, that's what it is. All voices matter. Some people gonna be, a little salty or what have you, but at the end of the day, we did what we thought was best for our constituents and our members inside of Ward 7. And so with that being stated, I'm gonna say this here. If anybody tell you today, I love all y'all. I'm sending love to everybody, man. Big love to the whole team. Kudos to everybody. Co-chair, I'm turning it back to you.
Thank you, co-chair. While I'm talking, would you just take a peruse through the chat? There may be some public out there. We don't want to shut them out totally. We know this is about the business of advancing our report for a delivery on tomorrow, but see what you can find if there's something in there that we can address quickly. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for your time, task force members, for your passion, for your respective neighborhoods. It is admirable and deeply, very deeply appreciated. We've all lost a lot of sleep. We've missed precious family time, and we will never be able to reclaim it, but we will make Ward 7 better because of it. I hope we all leave here encouraged, and speaking of encouragement, encourage our neighbors to get involved and be a part of the process that influences our city, our ward, our ANC, our SMD, because if we don't speak up, if we don't participate, what's going to happen to us as a community, as a whole? We need to encourage our friends and neighbors to participate. So the next step, we will make the adjustments to the report this evening, and tomorrow it's due by 5 p.m. We have to submit a copy of the recommended map to the Office of Planning, and the report itself with maps attached will go to the subcommittee. So the first hearings are already on the block. The first two hearings, one is April 7th, and then I believe the other date is April 28th. This is a public hearing, so anybody can testify, share their thoughts about the process, about a particular SMD, ANC, or whatever's going on. You can also testify not just about Ward 7, but if you feel so inclined, any other ward in the district, as they are also going through ANC and SMD redistricting. Co-chair, what did you see in the chat? Anything?
All I see is onward march. They're saying we did a great job. We can shut it down. If anything more pressing, they probably will come to the meeting that you told them about, but I didn't see anything but just telling us to move forward. So with that being stated, let's honor their request. And if it's okay with you, we can conclude tonight's convening. Look forward to seeing you all in the community.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night. We didn't say it.
Do not end it all until I save the chat, please, for the co-chairs.